So there are massive issues that are now emerging with the investigation into the crashed flight in Ahmedabad. You will remember that there was a preliminary report that vaguely suggested that there was confusion in the cockpit about those fuel control switches. Now the Wall Street Journal and the Daily Mail is going outright and blaming the pilots for it. The Airlines Association in India has actually said that this appears biased against the pilots. So we're going to take a look at what is really going on, because remember that report actually gave a clean chit to Boeing and to GE. Now, the preliminary report came out a month after the crash on the 12th of July. And it basically, if you'll remember, it said one pilot is asking, why have you switched this off? The other pilot denies doing so. So, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau that did that investigation does not appropriate any blame at all for the crash, nor does it appropriate who said what in that conversation. It says that at controls was the first officer, flight Clive Kundar, and the cockpit occupant in command was the captain, Sumit Sabharwal. Now, it actually gave a clean chit to Boeing and GE in that report, because the last sentence said that there has been no advice to either of these. But after that, we had the report that flagged the 2018 warning by the US Federation of Aviation saying there's a possible fault in the locking mechanism of these switches. Now, even though Air India had not inspected its aircraft as a result, since then the Indian authorities have asked Air India to check all their aircraft, and several other global airlines are also sort of proactively inspecting their Boeing fleets, which draws a question on the report itself as to why it managed to give Boeing a clean chit and then ask all aircraft to be checked. The Wall Street Journal carried a report on leaked information saying it was the first officer that was flying the aircraft and the captain who moved the switches. Remember, the report by the Indian authorities doesn't say who moved the switches. The Wall Street Journal cites the preliminary report, the same one, saying effectively that it was the captain that actually moved it. And it says it cites people familiar with the matter, US pilot safety experts, saying that it was the pilot. The Wall Street Journal also had a similar story about fuel control switches, where it basically said that there was a difference in opinion between India's AAIB and US based Transportation Safety Board, which threatened to walk out of the investigation. And it's gone as far as to say the commander pulled the switches, the first officer panicked, and the commander remained calm. It also went on to say that some US officials believe that criminal authorities like the FBI should be examining the matter in case this had happened in US soil. So it's also suggesting criminal activity, which is a really grave accusation to make of some sort of sabotage that requires a criminal investigation. Now, here's one massive issue with the report that was released by Indian authorities. It did not contain the entire transcribe of the conversation between the two pilots in the cockpit. So the pre-flight checks that would happen, that could have been released. And the 32-second flight, they have not released that entire transcribe. Just out of context, two sentences saying, why have you switched it off? I did not switch it off, without attributing it to anybody. So creating a lot of doubt instead of answering any questions. Now, what is worse, the second big problem is that after the Wall Street Journal articles came out, there's been no clear rebuttal from the Indian authorities in defense of the pilots. So the AIIB has reacted today saying it's too early to define conclusions of the plane crash. It said certain sections of international media have been repeatedly attempting to draw conclusions through selective and unverified reporting. This is irresponsible. We urge the public and the media to refrain from spreading premature narratives. But remember, it doesn't clearly say that we do not see criminal activity. It has not come out in defense of these pilots. What has happened after this, and this is not the first leak, this is the second leak in the Wall Street Journal, and there have been other newspapers as well that have written about it. On the 14th of July, Shiv Sena Member of Parliament Priyanka Chaturvedi raised some questions about this report, and she wrote to the Aviation Ministry about a lapse of information security. She basically said that it's deeply troubling to have sensitive details of the report available to foreign news agencies published by Wall Street Journal without any official release in India. So this actually came out before the report was released in India. She said it raises serious questions about the contents of the report being accessed by foreign entities. And she said that it has fueled speculation and it maligns the pilots who are no longer alive to defend themselves. Now, the Airline Pilots Association of India have demanded a fair, fact-based investigation. They've actually said, and this is the Airlines Pilots Association of India who said the tone and the direction of the investigation suggests a bias towards pilot error, and they want that actually corrected. The association has demanded that its representatives be observers in this investigation to ensure actual transparency. We are surprised by the secrecy surrounding these investigations, and we are reiterating the fact that suitably qualified personnel should be included in this investigation. Let's take a look at who is on the investigation board, because as soon as this came out, people said, wait, hang on, you don't have a pilot on the board? What's going on? So apparently there's a 5-member team. It's headed by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau Director, Sanjay Kumar Singh, who's 56 years old and has experience in these investigations. Also, the Deputy Director, Jasbir Singh, who's the Chief Investigator. 3 DGCA officials are also on this, on this board of investigators. Now, pilots, engineers, aviation, medicine specialists, psychologists, flight recorder specialists are taken on board as subject matter experts, but they are not investigators. Now, this basically Bureau of Investigation has been investigating aircraft crashes for years, but none of them are pilots, and that's the big question. Now, the Federation of Indian Pilots President, C.S. Randhawa, has slammed the Wall Street Journal's baseless report, emphasizing that the preliminary report does not attribute any blame, and said that they will take legal action against this report. The Civil Aviation Minister has come out and said that pilots and crew are the backbone of the aviation industry and are assured all necessary steps will be taken to uphold safety standards. Now, there have been other reports in various newspapers. The Live Mint, for example, actually quotes one consultant who says that there is a stabilizer problem of fault in this particular aircraft when it landed from Delhi, and it was not, it was supposedly fixed, but that has not been looked into. And there are other issues that are also being raised, none of which are being tackled in the report, to say that there is nothing technically wrong with the aircraft. The Daily Mail did a story which is entirely baseless from our understanding, but it's important we note what they have said. They've said that, and I'm quoting, "Did the depressed pilot deliberately crash the plane?" And this was an article that came out 4 days ago. Again today it says investigations into the tragic crash have begun to analyze the behavior of the pilot. And this is really irresponsible and baseless reporting, because what the Daily Mail, and there are a lot of these organizations in the UK that are completely tabloid, they have based their report on the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal suggesting that the captain was completely calm, and so the Daily Mail is suggesting that he was actually doing something deliberately. And that is really, really a massive problem. And the fact that no one has questioned it or no one has refuted this clearly in India is an issue that the pilots are raising. Now, there's an article in the NDTV by Sanjay Lazar, who is an analyst and someone who writes on aviation and law for the last 40 years. He is asking why the beneficiary of this entire report is Boeing. He says that there's been the stock of Boeing actually spiked after this report came out because it gave Boeing a clean chit and was a suggestion that there was nothing wrong with the aircraft. And that is something that needs to be looked at very clearly. So he talks about how the information was leaked, that there's been a clear sort of coercive move to blame the pilots, and Boeing has been given a clean chit. Now remember, India's aviation industry right now is among the biggest in the world. We have built upwards of 200 airports across the country, which means we're going to need more and more aircraft, which means we're going to do a lot of business with companies like Boeing and companies like Airbus. So at this point, it's very crucial to take a close look at the kind of details our investigators are actually putting out and what this means for the big companies, the global companies that are actually involved. At the end of the day, like we've said in the past, the families of the pilots, the families of the 270 souls who were lost in that plane crash for no fault of theirs deserve closure. They deserve answers in an unbiased way. This is something we're going to keep a really close eye on, because like I said, it's not just the families of those on board, it's not just those who are on the ground, but all of us who take flights on a daily basis and trust our authorities to keep things actually on the straight and narrow deserve answers from what is going on. Leave me a comment on what you think the quality of this investigation actually is.